65, 66 or so. I went to Thomas Jefferson High School. Paul went to Hillcrest. So when our parents would bring us up here for events and activities, that's where Paul and I knew each other. And needless to say, back then, Paul, we were full of more of the free spirit than we were the Holy Spirit. And but we became acquainted then. Does anybody remember when Bruce Hearn rode the motorcycle down the? Okay, you think that was an original idea? He got that from my friend Paul Baker, Paul Reed. So that's another story for another day. But Bruce really got that from Paul. We separated our ways, and Paul, of course, like a lot of people in high school, you don't know where they went or what happened to them. Paul joined the U.S. Army in 1966 and served at the 82nd Airborne Division, Fort Bragg, and in early 1968 with the 173rd Airborne Brigade in Vietnam. And so I didn't know this, and so he was a member of the U.S. Army. I went to school, and 4 years later, joined the United States Air Force, which is kind of how I got to be reacquainted with Paul through the back door. Having attained the rank of a sergeant, he was honorably discharged in 1969, and years later became a contributing author to a book entitled Vietnam, Our Story, One-on-One, a compilation of war stories from Vietnam War compiled by Gary Gullickson. And later he commenced writing a story that involved the capture of a diary, which you'll hear about, from an enemy officer. It was to be a story not entirely of war, but included an element of healing. Halfway through the process of the book, Paul was assisted by Stephen Smith of Seattle, who was a producer, a documentary producer, and they produced a TV documentary by the name of Khartoum Diary. And the first production was put on, and maybe some of you have seen it, was put on PBS nationwide in 1995 and won an Emmy. The book Khartoum Diary later was published and by Summit Publishing, and the foreword was written by another name that you might remember, General William Westmoreland, wrote the foreword to this book. And the prologue was by a friend of mine, Captain Jerry Coffey. Probably don't know that name. Jerry was a prisoner of war in Hanoi for a little over 7 years as a Navy pilot. Paul has been seen on the Dan Rather broadcasts, on PBS, CNN, etc. Anyway, that was his background. And we lived, as some of you know, we moved to Frisco a long time ago, and we were attending First Methodist in Frisco, and my wife one night said, hey, there's a veterans thing going on tonight at the church. I'm doing something else. You might want to go. I said, well, I don't know if I want to go or not. What's it about? She says, well, this guy by the name of Paul is talking about a book called Khartoum Diary. And my eyebrows raised and a chill went up my spine because Paul was in Khartoum in 1968 during the Tet Offensive. And I didn't know it, but I was going to be in the same place during the Easter Offensive in 1972. and was there when the town fell. So I went, not knowing who this was, and was I surprised? One, this was not a war story, and two, I looked at him, I said, Paul from Hillcrest, is that you? And he says, yeah, man, it's me. So I was taken back by this and started following Paul. And a lot of my comments are written in the bio in your program there. So I'll let you please read that because there's a lot more to it. But I'd like to welcome my friend Paul Reed back to Lovers Lane Methodist Church. Paul.